This is the France 24 debate. We've been asking our panel, is Turkey's prime minister of a decade now facing the stiffest challenge yet, this time not from the secular opposition, but from people inside of his own ruling party. This amid a wide swoop that's netted the arrest of powerful businessmen and the arrest as well of the sons of 3 government ministers. We're talking about it with Emre Demir of the French edition of Zaman. French edition of Zaman, which publishes in French?
In French, sure.
Publishes in
Paris.
Yes. Publishes here in Paris. Zaman, daily newspaper that publishes in both Turkish and English inside of Turkey. Also with us, Arnaud Castagnier, blogger and political consultant, and from London, Turkish author and academic Ziya Maral. Thank you for joining all of us. Ziya, just before the break, Arnaud was talking about these schools linked to Fethullah Gulen. Just remind for our viewers, who is Fethullah Gulen? And I suppose an important question is, where is Fethullah Gulen?
I think there's a lot of enigma about Fethullah Gulen. He's started his career as a cleric who was employed by the state and leading mosques in Turkey, then started a movement which really pretty much sought to refresh people's faith by expression of service to people around them. And the movement really started growing from their 90s, and currently it is a global movement. It's got educational institutions in more than 100 schools and charities that relates to that. Fethullah Gulen himself had to flee to United States during a court case against him when the military regime that influenced politics in Turkey for so long was seeking to arrest him on the accusations that he is planning to overthrow the secular regime. He's been in the United States ever since, and when he will return or whether he will return to Turkey has been a question. However, the court cases against him have all eventually found him not guilty of the charges that was brought against him. He's an influential writer. His sermons are listened by millions of people. The size of his movement in Turkey is still debated, but some estimates range from 3 to 4 million people, one way or another, having some sort of personal affiliation with the movement. And he's quite respected across the party. His theology is very much different than other clerical voices we see in the Middle East, so we're not able to call him an Islamist because he wants to focus on personal piety expressed in personal expressions of service, but within that also influence public morality and public's perception of Islam as well, and give a good testimony, if you like, with a unique blend of Sufi and Nursi and Sunni Islam.
I was going to say, Ziya, because on the one hand, we know he rejects political Islam in the way, say, the Muslim Brotherhood embraces it. On the other hand, you can hear his sermons inside of his schools. So what is the message exactly?
I've listened a lot of his sermons over the years. In a sense, his message has been quite straightforward. He does not believe in a Sharia state. He believes that a secular state can enable Muslims to be Muslims more than certain formations of Islamic jurisprudence that has been developed in previous centuries. He regularly speaks about his belief in personal rights, and individuals should be free to believe or not to believe. In fact, his movement have been quite groundbreaking in Turkey by reaching out to Jews and Christians when nobody was doing that. In Turkey in the late 90s, especially when nobody wanted to touch issues of religious freedom for non-Muslims, he was involved, and his followers are involved with various multi-faith initiatives around the world. The question about his theology of the state and theology of his movement is a contention in regards to whether or not the old survival mechanisms which the movement developed by raising students that were faithful to the teachings of Gulen and placing them across the state structures is actually now stifling the movement, whether or not Gulen himself has full control over a wide range of different networks actually now that make up his movement, and whether some people in some parts of this movement have different perceptions of the state. That is not clear to us, and that's only an answer that can be given from within the movement.
All right, and so it's still a matter of debate just how much support he has. Certainly, supporters of Recep Tayyip Erdogan believe that his supporters are behind this sweep of arrests of 50 people. Some of them have been released since, but still quite a few people being questioned as we speak. We have on Facebook a comment viewers not showing a lot of love for Erdogan tonight, it seems. Can saying, in the Gezi Park riots, 4 died, but not a single policeman was fired when children of ministers are arrested. 5 high-ranking police chiefs are dismissed. I believe that number has actually since gone up.
More than 30.
Some dismissed and some transferred to different posts. Yes. We, by the way, tried to get a representative of the AKP to be with us on the show. None accepted our offer, but let's hope that next time they will. Let me ask you, Emre, on this point. Now that it's the perception that it is an us v them scenario, are we headed for a fight within the AKP? Is this it?
Well, I think we have to separate 2 things. Yes, there is some differences, very important difference between Gülen movement and the AKP since 3 or 4 years. Gülen movement has supported the referendum project, the constitution project of the AKP in 2010, and then after there are 2 major differences between the political view of AKP, Erdogan himself, and the Gülen movement. Erdogan chose to be the Hugo Chavez of the region, of the Middle East, instead of being the Lula da Silva, Mandela of the region. He changed his political view. He chose to turn to the east, and Gülen movement needs a Turkey which has close ties with the Western countries, with Europe, and with the United States.
So on that point, the Gülen movement, how did it feel, for instance, when we see the return of the headscarf to universities, when we see a lot of places where alcohol is no longer sold? How do they feel about those changes that we see creeping into Turkish society?
And the second point is that the Gülen movement has criticized the authoritative tone of the AKP government, and these kind of bans about the public life, who tries to control the public, the civil society. In fact, there's a growing tendency in Erdogan to control the public space, the civil society with the means of state. So it was a second point of critics of the Gülen movement. But we have to separate this probe with these critics. Yes, there are some growing tensions between the AKP and the Gülen movement, and it is actually Erdogan who is more critic than the Gülen movement. But this probe, I think, it's not a political row, it's not a political conflict, and it's a real case, it's a real probe case with some serious allegations, with some serious proofs.
All right, we've mentioned the Turkish Prime Minister's short fuse. He didn't mince words when he reacted to the current swoop.
Those who are receiving the support of financial circles and media cannot change the direction of this country. Those who are supported by dark circles from inside and outside the country cannot change the direction of Turkey. The ones who are backed by dark internal and external forces cannot change the direction of Turkey. They can't change Turkey. Turkey is not a country that will be passively altered and modified.
All right, those receiving the support of financial circles and media and dark circles inside and outside the country. Yet, a lot of people subscribe to Prime Minister Erdogan's message. In fact, polls suggest that if he does run for president next August, he'll win hands down.
Well, this year there'll be two elections in Turkey. You're going to have the municipal elections in March and the presidential election next summer. The thing is, when you add this scandal and the Gezi Park riots, you can expect a lot of mayors from the AKP starting to feel a little bit about their re-election. And as Emre already started to say, the AKP is actually pretty divided. A lot of supporters of the AKP do not appreciate the vocabulary of Erdogan when he talks about those dark circles. A lot of them don't appreciate how authoritarian he can be. The problem is not Erdogan being conservative. The problem is Erdogan being authoritarian. And in this crisis, in the same way during Gezi Park crisis, we are all waiting for the president's reaction, because Erdogan is planning to become president this summer, but there's already run president Abdullah Gül, and during the Occupy Gezi riots, he has shown that he was more calm, to deal with the crisis. So we may expect a lot of members of the AKP to ask Abdullah Gül to involve himself and to appear and to try to reunite the conservative camp. In that case, it could be quite another challenge for Erdogan.
Zia Maral, there seems to be two schools of thought when it comes to Turkey's president. It's a mostly ceremonial post. Some saying Abdullah Gül, because he did show signs of criticism during those protests over the summer, could be a way to counter the authoritarian streak of Erdogan. But others saying that he hasn't really put his political stake on the put a political reputation on the line, and that if it does come down to a fight, they don't really believe he'll go up against Erdogan.
Depends on the scenario. I mean, President Gül has been in office and in politics for quite some time now for us to be able to decode what he means or what type of a person he is, or his temperament or his approach to politics. So that's why a lot of people see in him a reconciliatory tone, a much more inclusive tone of voice, which has been the case though since the start of AKP. Now, in terms of the elections, I think the Prime Minister Erdogan will announce today or tomorrow a major revision in the cabinet. At least 7 ministers we hear will be shuffled, 4 of them relating to this corruption scandal, but 3 of them were scheduled to because of the time cap on their terms. What might very well happen is if Prime Minister Erdogan might not succeed in controlling the damage, and if AKP increasingly loses more and more support within its own constituency as well as within this legal drama that is unfolding, Prime Minister Erdogan might very well call for early national elections. That would be a smart move on his part to be able to assess or rather demonstrate that he still can gather votes, so therefore he might feel stronger to clamp down on the future possible investigations. This changes all of the calculations about whether he will stand back from prime ministry as promised after his 3rd term and whether he will then pursue presidency. We can pretty much be certain that his planned or desire to have a much more enhanced role for presidency is quite out of the picture at the moment. But what President Gül will do is also another unknown at this stage. Recently, in some of his speeches, he gave the signals that he might very well turn to politics, in the sense that there have been a lot of rumors that he might proceed to an international post after being the president, such as maybe one day Secretary General for the United Nations. But now in his comments and certain things that we hear in Ankara, it is possible that President Gül himself feels a personal burden about the state of things within the party, the perception of AKP voters, as well as the general public, because Gül's popularity ratings reach almost 80%, which is phenomenal given the deep polarization across the country. So it might very well be that actually President Gül will stand down and actually run for being the prime minister as his own personal expression of service to the party and the country. But at this stage, it is very soon. However, I do think that we might very well see in early elections, and this old 3 election cycle that we've been forecasting might not actualize.
Emre Demir, the chances of a snap early election announced by Prime Minister Erdogan?
It's pretty possible, because I think that Erdogan...
If you're a betting man, what would you say? If you're a betting man, what would you say? Yes or no?
Well, yeah, I would say yes, because this probe is a big blow for AKP and Erdogan, for his supporters. He's still a very powerful leader, a very popular leader, and if he can assess the damage made with these probes.
You know that in this country we had a president who had a very comfortable majority in parliament, called a snap election, and it went horribly wrong.
Well, yes, actually, but it is very complicated with the with the local elections, and after the presidential elections, and after the general elections. It may be a good chance. It may be a good case, a good opportunity.
So after the municipal elections.
Yeah.
Alnu?
Yeah, of course, that would be a pretty smart political move, even if 3 elections in the same year may be a bit too much for the public opinion. It would be a very smart move. However, we still don't know how the investigations are going to evolve. Maybe we're going to have more information in the next hours or in the next days, and now everybody's thinking about how everybody's trying to know. When Erdogan started to be aware of those investigations, and because we still don't know his links with the Azeri businessman and or with the governmental agency building urban projects. So we're still waiting for those informations. If Erdogan called for a new election, I mean, we were talking about the timing earlier. The best timing for new information would be during the campaigns. So it's new elections would still be pretty risky for Erdogan.
Zia Morel, let me play devil's advocate here. This corruption probe, if it does turn out that there are formal charges that do stick, nonetheless, voters in Turkey know there's corruption. They've had it with previous governments in the past. Will that really matter on election day, or will they instead think, hey, this is the Erdogan who, you know, has helped the economy improve so much over the past decade, helped us build a metro under the Bosphorus and all sorts of projects?
It matters a lot more than actually we talk about it at the moment. In late 90s, the reason why AKP was able to emerge in early 2000 was the scandals, the financial misdealings of the people in government in late 90s. And it was, in fact, one of the main selling points of AK Party from the start was that its conservative values gave people some sort of confidence that this party will actually stop stealing money from the state for its own pockets, but this government will take Turkish economy forward. And in fact, one could argue that one of the main reasons why AKP has survived intense fights at the courts as well as within state structures with the military regime and the old regime in Turkey was its economic success. Now, if you look at the protests in Gezi, the reason why they did not achieve what a lot of people thought will achieve, i.e. Erdogan will step down and government will crumble and then Turkish Spring will kick off, was because it played on the Turkish identity politics and the deep polarization in the country. It united AKP supporters behind Erdogan because the entire clash played all of the games in public perception and fault lines. But now the challenge that Erdogan faces is no more easily manageable by playing the public identity games of us versus you and external enemies versus internal enemies, even though that's the only option he has to spin the serious allegations. This goes to the core of his claims as a moral Muslim government that upholds service to people, that has a fear of God. So if you accept the fact that even though within AKP and within conservative circles there has been growing displeasure with Prime Minister Erdogan's harsh rhetorics, which a lot of them thought is not really suiting for conservative Muslims to do, and now if this serious allegation is proven to be correct, the entire credibility and plausibility of that regime crumbles. Now, this doesn't mean Prime Minister Erdogan is going to disappear or AKP will not win the elections. It will. But it is likely that AKP will see a substantial loss in votes, which will still possibly a single-party government, but with a lot less MPs. But in the long run, the damage that is being caused by AKP, thus actually the strong reaction Prime Minister Erdogan is giving, trying to stop or curb the impact of this investigation, is the very perception of this government being shaken. And in fact, ministers receiving millions of dollars from a businessman for shady deals, in fact, should be alone a reason for them not only just to resign and be fired, but even face criminal charges right away if possible.
All right, and on Facebook, one of the viewers agreeing with you again, Asa saying, in any other country, an interior minister whose son is arrested would resign. In Turkey, the minister sacks the chief of police. Zia, have you done a head count at all inside of the ruling AKP? How much support does Erdogan have?
It is really difficult to assess. Erdogan still has a dear place in people's hearts within the party. Since 2011, since the changes in the party's leadership structures, as well as the appointments, there has been a sense that he's been tightening his grip. He's been inviting more conservative people and more Islamists into structures. And Erdogan has been planning for his transitioning out from being the prime minister and head of the party into being the president. So in a sense, his game plan has already been in place. What will happen to party when the time comes for him to actually step down from the role of the prime minister has always been a question. But let us not forget, people are rational actors in this kind of political situations. For example, we already started seeing a couple of local level AKP candidates shifting parties. We already saw a high-ranking, well, influential and popular member of the parliament, an ex-footballer, resigned because of the clash with Gülen in public. And there were rumors that there might be up to 20 more MPs that might actually leave AKP and possibly form a group within the parliament or just be independents in response to the clash to Gülen movement. It's too soon to calculate whether or not these rumors are true or whether or not we'll see a fragmentation within AKP. However, the saddest thing here is that because we have an absent opposition, I mean, we still do not have an actual opposition that can actually stand in this contexture. If they could, then we could have seen a tremendously fruitful, if you like, process of democracy where the ruling government could have been held accountable, where there could have been an alternative for votes. But a lot of people I speak to are still saying, even from the Gülen movement himself, with all of the bads, with all of the mistakes that have been done, particularly since 2011, this government has achieved a lot. Erdogan has done a lot of great work. Who else can we vote for? Because all the options are, looks really much more worse than the scenarios that we're talking at the moment.
Is there an alternative right now, Emre?
No. We don't know how Abdullah Gül will act. Apart from Abdullah Gül, we don't have any alternative to Erdogan.
Well, for the moment, there's no alternative. The main opposition might be within the AKP. We mentioned Abdullah Gül. However, some of those investigations are related to construction permits in protected areas of Istanbul, and investigations are related to massive urban projects in Istanbul. And this year, there's the municipal elections in Istanbul, and the candidate from the opposition is the mayor of Şişli district of Istanbul, and he's the current most popular center-left politician. And some people were saying that he made the biggest chance for CHP to run against Erdogan. So let's wait to see if he managed to take advantage of this situation to criticize AKP's urban policy in Istanbul and then become mayor of Istanbul. Because we all know that when you are mayor of Istanbul is the best.
I was going to say it's been known to be a springboard for higher office, as was the case with with the prime minister.
However, in that, if he wants to, if Mustafa Sarıgül wants to take advantage of the situation, we must be sure that he's not going to be involved in any corruption issue. And for the moment, I think we almost everybody can be suspected. There are rumors everywhere, and the opposition is maybe also fearing that some corruption cases might target them as well.
Emre Demir, we're almost out of time. Are prosecutors going to go all the way and press those charges and bring suspected wrongdoers to justice?
Well, actually, the government, instead of declaring support to investigation, they try to make pressures against the prosecutors and the police chiefs. So we don't know how this process will evolve, this probe will evolve. And I think that the government didn't give a good example of how to manage this situation. And we see now very clearly that Turkey needs a free media, a working parliament, and an independent justice system.
All right, Emre Demir, I want to thank you. Emre Demir from Zaman. I want to thank Arnaud Castagnier and Zia Moral for being with us from London. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.
Banda Aceh revisited. On December 26, 2004, a tsunami of unprecedented proportions hit the Indian Ocean coastline with waves over 30